Hey everybody, Bryant with the Shamrock Restaurant Consulting Team, here to talk about growing sales in the new economy. So before we unpack this, we've got to talk about the economy. We've got the post state, the current state, and the future state. So here's some interesting insight that came out of COVID. I think probably the biggest indicator and the most important thing that we've learned is how COVID has changed the restaurant-diner relationship. This statistic is really fascinating to me, showing how consumers engaged with our brand during COVID. A lot of this stuff is going to stay. Takeout, no surprise, 95%. Delivery, obviously that number went up incredibly at 70%. Dine-in is no surprise to anybody. Curbside takeaway was kind of a surprise. That number felt a little bit low, like we didn't do enough to try to engage in that. And I think the demand outweighed necessarily the supply. And the drive-through number didn't necessarily change. But amongst all this change, there's some interesting stuff to pay attention to. The fact that pre-COVID, 80% of all dining happened inside the restaurant. During COVID, that number completely flipped. 80% was all takeaway. What's fascinating to me is we moved from a high-touch environment, low-tech, to low-touch, high-tech. All of these efficiencies and ways for guests to engage with our brand have created something that's going to probably resonate for quite a while, and that's going to force us into this high-touch, high-tech environment. Now, one great outcome of COVID in our business was the fact that it taught us the importance of diversifying and creating multiple revenue streams. So I want to talk about the top 8 revenue streams that kind of came out of this and that I expect are probably going to stay. Obviously, dine-in and takeaway, that's your inside and your outside piece. Those are going to be here forever. The drive up, the drive through, or even the curbside takeaway is going to be a fixed staple in the new revenue stream. Bulk catering, online ordering, and we're going to talk quite a bit about this today. B&I catering, so this is business and industry, and I want to make a quick distinguishing difference between bulk catering and B&I catering. Bulk catering is for more of the personal, and B&I catering is more for the professional. So when you think box lunch, business drop-off, that's your B&I catering segment. You're going to present that food in the package a little bit different versus your bulk meal drop-offs, your burger bars and your taco kits and that type of stuff for more family or interpersonal groups. So that is a very important distinguishable difference. Next, we have third-party platforms. Those are here to stay, and they go well beyond just the traditional third-party delivery. And then, of course, we have delivery, and we're going to talk quite a bit about all of these pieces. An interesting thing to note about these 8 pillars of revenue is the way that they're segmented. We've got the top 4 are more of a in-person or in real life. We've got the bottom 4 that are traditionally engaged in at a digital level. And that brings me to this concept of the brand model. And this is really kind of like the customer journey. When we build a business plan, these are the things that we're paying attention to. First is our product offering. What is our point of differentiation? What's our value proposition, that intersection between quality and value, or quality and price? Next, the presentation value of the entire experience. What does the hospitality and service elements look like? What is the expectation that we want the guest to have of our business? How do we inspect the way that the guest engaged with the brand? And then, of course, managing our reputation. So this really is that customer journey, this brand model. But what's fascinating is when we look at the way that the brand model aligns with our different revenue centers, we find some disconnect. Forever, and because of the 80-20 rule, that old 80-20 rule, it made sense that we were focusing all of this energy and effort on dine-in. And so those interpersonal direct contact pieces, dine-in, takeaway, drive-through, and traditional catering, we're doing that really well. However, when you look at these elements that we offer within the digital platform, you see a lot of disconnect in these 8 different touch points in the way that we manage the guest journey. So we've got to be mindful of that moving forward, because we fully expect that this landscape is going to shift to an even 50-50 in the short term and probably for a lot longer. So that kind of sets the foundation for the conversation today. Now let's talk about my favorite subject, sales growth. So real simply, there's 3 ways to impact sales. That is by getting new customers in the door, getting your existing customers to come back with a higher level of frequency, and of course, getting both parties to spend more money. I want to start with talking about that first-time visit. Driving new business has some very, very interesting indicators when we look at some of the statistics. So when customers are asked, what influences them to try a new restaurant? These are the stats. 41% say they'll try a new restaurant based on positive feedback that they get just within the generic social sphere. 68% say that they're influenced to try a new restaurant based on positive online reviews. 80% say that it's from some type of promotion or discount. And 91%, tried and true, it's that word of mouth feedback that comes from a trusted source, a direct friend, somebody that they trust and know. And what's fascinating to me is the way that we look at these statistics is we work in spending our marketing money from the left to the right. When you look at the way that the impact works, we should probably be focusing right to left. So we're going to talk about how to do that and the importance of reevaluating our strategies. So here's a fascinating statistic. 3 out of 4 people find a new restaurant by simply going to their phone, typing in restaurants near me, and whatever they see is where they tend to pick from. So I'm going to walk you through the exact process. This is fascinating. I type in restaurants near me. I get this box. The number one driving engine is Google, and they're going to show me the restaurants closest to me. If I don't like my first option, I can expand this and look at more. But what historically happens is if I find something that catches my interest, I'm going to expand. I'm going to click through. I'm going to go to their website. The very most important thing that I want to see is the menu. I want to understand what the offering is and if that's going to appeal to everybody in my group. Now, secondary to this piece is going to be people going to Yelp. It's still common, but it is 1 in 10 people defer from the Google landing page to go down to Yelp to get some type of insider information on where to dine. If they go to your page and they're not going to the menu, then they're looking at what's the social platform relative to where they spend their time, Facebook or Instagram. What are they saying about that particular restaurant? Do I know anybody that's given feedback? Do any of my friends follow this page? Is it worth going to? This is the way that we decide how to go to a new restaurant. Another interesting statistic, 89% of people dining go to their mobile phone and do research before visiting the restaurant live. So the importance of this tells us, A, the priority, and how critical it is to own your digital footprint. So we're going to start with the one that is most overlooked to me. This absolutely blows my mind. We've done tons and tons of study on all of our clients and how they're engaging. Google My Business. It's amazing how many people miss this. So 3.5 billion searches a day on Google. Over 1 billion of those per day is restaurant related. That's a big number. That's the number one place that people land first. Then they may go to Yelp, or they're going to go to their different social media platforms to get some further information about the brand. So we have to design our approach according to the direction that they go in, and that leads me to Google My Business first. I think one of the most common things that people look at Google My Business for is to make sure that their restaurant shows up on the map, and that's great. But outside of just filling in the basic information, we have to get really, really deep on filling in that complete bio, and there's so much content to put in there. There are so many great opportunities to make the guest aware of what you offer and what you do. Another interesting piece is we find that our customers are so focused on Yelp and the reviews on Yelp and even on TripAdvisor to an extent, but it's amazing how many people aren't focused on the guest feedback management within Google. If it's the number one driver and that's your star rating, and the star rating is an indicator of what's going to be a good place to go to or not, we'd better pay attention to that piece. Next, we have the attributes. There's over 300 plus restaurant attributes in a restaurant listing on Google My Business. We've got to go through and pick as many as possible. It's going to drive SEO, which is search engine optimization. And the more we engage with this platform, the more thorough we are in filling in all this information, the higher the driver on SEO. Next, the Q&A. It's real simple. Go in and answer the questions. Don't just let guests that interact with your page answer the questions for your business. A big miss, not having an attached menu within your Google My Business page. Having your website link, having your online ordering link put right into your page. And posts. This one is missed so often. A post similar to Facebook or Instagram, Google My Business has the exact same capacity, and you should be posting pictures. There's some interesting stats that we'll talk about in just a bit. And what I like about Google My Business more than any other platform is the fact that the analytics and the insights are so incredibly deep. The free analytics and insights are incredibly deep. And a huge miss, put in a call to action in the bio. Tell the guests to do something. If their eyes are on that page, give them a trigger, an indicator. Mention you saw us on Google and we'll buy you a cocktail. I want to know how they find us. I want to figure that part out, and I want to have a call to action so they don't move on from my page to anybody else's page. Okay, within Yelp, relatively same construct. We need to go in and make sure that it is complete and current, especially COVID, post-COVID. We've got to update our hours of operation, update our safety standards, all the different things that we're doing. We also, of course, know the importance of managing guest feedback. Here's a cool hack, and a lot of restaurants don't take advantage of this. The owner can control a check-in offer. You can give somebody an incentive, a free thing, or something just by checking in, showing that you've checked in. However you want to manage that, it's a really, really cool tool. Next, Yelp and really all these platforms have that opportunity for your online ordering link. And if 50% of our audience is moving to that mobile environment, we'd better pay attention to how to capture them. There's also the menu link function within Yelp. Yelp has decent analytics that are free. And then the last three items are kind of asterisked by the pay services, but I got to call a couple of them out. The call to action, there's call to action buttons that you can put in, whether it's a direct menu link or whatever you decide to put in. About $1 a day, $30 a month, not bad, measurable ROI. I can tell how well this worked. It's worth paying attention to. Waitlist is one of my favorites. If you're a busy concept and you're on a wait and think that you don't need to be busier, you're crazy. Use waitlist, and busy places get even busier. It tells the customer how long it will take for them to get seated. I can sit at my house, get on waitlist. The algorithm ties how long the wait is relative to the map app running in the background from where I am and where the restaurant is, how far away it is. It prompts me and tells me when to leave my house to get there. And it also has a two-way communication device where the restaurant can communicate with you directly. It's a relatively inexpensive service for what it does, and I'm a big fan of it. The next one is Yelp Wi-Fi. Now, most concepts are paying a couple $100 a month to manage their own internal Wi-Fi. For a fraction more, $250, maybe $299, Yelp has a great Wi-Fi service that your guests can opt into for free, but they have to put in their email. That helps you build a database, and it gives you tremendous analytics. How often did they come? What day part did they visit you in? What's their frequency of return? And then there's a whole bunch of really cool push message marketing campaigns that you can do through this list to get guests to come back, and you'll always have that information. It's a really, really cool tool. All right, next, let's talk about social responsibility, since we're in the all things socially related. This is a huge miss and something that we see people do quite often, and we really got to correct these behaviors. We post without a call to action. It's just a whole bunch of photography and not telling me what to do with that photography. Now, photography is great because we know that restaurants who post photos have a 42% higher likelihood of a guest visiting. But we've got to take that a step further and tell them what to do, whether it's a limited time offer, some type of incentive, a special, an alignment with a fundraiser or a charity, or a particular event. We have to make sure that we're putting a caption over the picture, not at the bottom, in a description. A caption over the picture telling them to do something. Super, super important. And some interesting insights that I read that I thought I should share with everyone, that the best time to post universally on all social media platforms is, and the way they related this is to the time that people eat. So it's 9 a.m. between noon and 1 and 8 p.m. Now, I would say there's a caveat when you look at Instagram. There's a really, really high time of influence at 3 p.m., and that's because it's a younger audience. Kid get out of school, the first thing they do is go to their Instagram page. So those are great things to know. And I'm going to pair that with this cool hack. If you're managing your own internal social media marketing, Hootsuite is a great dashboard. It allows you to bring all of those places into one spot, put one post out, and disseminate it equally across all brands. And when you do it, you can set the time that you want it to release. So you can set it for 8 p.m., between noon and 1, however you want to do it. There's another really cool app that I like because Hootsuite does not offer an interface with the Google Posts. So there's a free app called Portcake, and Portcake has a direct link that anything you post on Instagram automatically goes over to your Google My Business page. Cool stuff. All right, this is one of my favorite hacks. Tag your it. We call this the Insta Hack. So there's a restaurant concept that we worked with, and I thought this was so incredible. The server was trained that whenever you had an audience that was young, attractive, and looked like they were having a great time, the server's instructed to go up to the table, open the Instagram app, and ask the guest if they can take a picture of them. Looks like you guys are having a great time. Would love to post you on our Instagram page. Well, there's this celebrity element to that gets the consumer excited. So, of course, majority of them say, yeah, we'd love to. And when you do this within the app and you take the picture of the group having a great time, the server hands the phone to the table and says, if anybody wants to put their handle in, we'll post this and you'll get access to it, right? So super, super smart idea because now they're reposting it and however many of their friends repost it and on and on and on. But the big, big important takeaway, just like in any other call to action, put the name of your restaurant in an overlay label on top of it. Otherwise, it's just food porn. It's just a cool picture from a restaurant, and I don't know where it's from. Claim it, own it, and get people to actually do something when they see it. Okay, let's talk about repeat visits. Now, this is a really interesting topic. We focus a lot on loyalty, but I don't think that we necessarily understand the way loyalty works, or we don't think about it. So, the number one driver in loyalty is the quality of the guest experience. If I loved everything about the place, the environment, the ambiance, the food, the quality, the pricing, the experience I had with my friends, the engagement with the staff, I'm going to go back. I'm going to become loyal because I want that dopamine trigger. I want to go have fun when I go out. Outside of the experience is recognition. Customers love spending money, but they love spending money where it's recognized, where they're recognized, where they feel important, kind of local celebrity. When we can treat them like that, we get them back more often. It's a big deal. Of course, the one that is kind of the standard is creating a loyalty program with rewards and incentives, and that's important as well. But here's the one I think that we miss, especially when it comes to bringing in guests at a higher rate of return. We have to give them more ways to access our brand. We can't be one-dimensional in expecting that 80% of all experiences are going to be dine-in. We already know they're not, so how many different ways can I engage? Do you have online ordering? Do you have curbside takeaway? Do you have catering? Do you have B&I? Can I roll this out at work and get boxed lunches and show everybody my favorite restaurant at my business? It's a good idea. Here's the most compelling fact. Restaurants spend 11 times more on recruiting a new customer than they do on retaining an existing one. So we really have to focus on these loyalty pieces and giving our guests that opportunity to engage with us in different ways. Okay, because this big shift of 50-50 dine-in versus dining outside of the restaurant is happening and going to be here for a long time, we've got to focus on online ordering. We've got to manage our menus differently. It's a different audience. It can have a different price point. And most importantly, it just needs to exist. So if you don't have it right now, we did a great video back at the beginning of this, back in April of last year, where we featured Gloria Foods. They're a free online ordering platform, no strings attached, incredibly dynamic. And you can check out our resource page at shamrockfoodservice.com to find a link to that video. Or you can reach out to anybody on the Shamrock consulting team to get more information on how to do that. We also have partnered with a company called the 240 Group. And the 240 Group, if you don't want to do it on your own, you can invest a very, very small amount. In fact, no money up front. They'll build this for you, and then they take a portion of the transaction, and they do a beautiful job as well. Having it is what's critical. And this is the new normal. We're not going to be able to put that genie back in the bottle. So we've got to pay attention to what some of the data is telling us. And this just helps hammer home the importance of this message. So 45% of customers say that the ability to spend more money with the restaurants that they already like would increase by 45% if they had online ordering. Now, here was a fascinating statistic. We found that the average guest check from a restaurant that offers online ordering to in-dining was 30% higher when customers ordered online. Now, I think that's probably because they have more time to actually decide, to look at the menu. You're not going to judge them on how many different items they order to the table because they're not live, so they can be more indulgent, sample more things. They're spending more money. It's a very compelling reason to focus on that. And next, and this is going to come into play in just a little bit, 64% of customers said that they would prefer to order through the restaurant's website direct versus through a third-party company. And that's going to be very, very important. So across all platforms right now, any of the big social media platforms, you have the opportunity to insert these order buttons, whether it's on your Google page, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, adding the widget to place the order, or even amongst concepts like Yelp. Putting that action button in there is super, super critical. The guest is looking for that opportunity. All right, so the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We got to talk third party. They're not going away. And again, they do cover a lot more than just the third party delivery. So we know that they have crazy fees. And probably some of the best news that's come out is some of the regulation that's happening, a 15% cap in a lot of the major markets. That's not everywhere. So we got to pay attention. But there's a whole lot of local alternatives flooding the scene, and there's even some big national players that are coming in at a discounted rate that's probably going to be sustainable. So I encourage you to expand your view on who's doing this, but the most important thing I could say is look at this platform differently. Don't look at them as a delivery company that charges you a ton. Think about them as a marketing vehicle. And we're going to talk about that specifically in just a second. But before we do, if you're going to stick with this route, and you're going to use third-party delivery, you might have this eyesore of a command central type of setup with all these different pads and kiosks that you have to get an order from, transpose the order into the POS system. It's a train wreck. I've had a lot of clients who've actually opted out and said, look, I'm just using the major 2 or 3 because this is too much to manage. You could lose a huge opportunity for a lot of new business by rationalizing that way. So one of our recommendations is to look at these third-party aggregators. One that I've worked with a lot is Chowly. Chowly will basically take all of those order pads, consolidate it, and put it directly into your POS system. Every time an order comes in, it just goes right into the POS, prints the ticket right back to the kitchen. Very, very cool. There's a couple of other ones up here. Otter's a little newer to the market. Ordermark is making a big splash, so look at those. Now let's talk about delivery in and of itself. We're huge proponents for managing your own delivery internally. And there are some really, really cool ways to do this. So we have to start with a delivery feasibility calculator. I'm not going to go into tremendous depth about how this works. I'm going to encourage you to reach out to the Shamrock consulting team. We've got a number of us, 10 of us available at any time to help walk you through this. But here is the core takeaway. If I could do just 4 orders per hour, my cost to manage delivery internally is only 14%. Point better than the discounted fee and regulation, half the cost of what third parties if you're in a non-regulated market. And that's just if you're doing the bare minimum 4 orders, per hour. So I encourage everybody to look at, does this model fit for you in a complete way that you could manage your own delivery? Third-party conversion. Now, this is where we talk about the third-party delivery company. Don't look at them as a delivery company. Look at them as a marketing company, right? They are bringing new business to you. I'd pay 15 to 30% to get a new lead, but after I ship their first order to their house, I'm going to put a $10 gift card in there with a QR code on the gift card and instructions that say, order from us direct on our website, snap this QR code, get $10 off on your next order. I do that all day. As soon as I can own it, I can control the environment, the way that my delivery driver looks, the timeliness is going to get to their residents faster. It's going to be more polished, more professional, more controlled by me, and the cost to the consumer is going to be less. We're judged on the bottom line price, and we're not getting that bottom line. That's coming through the big third party. So I encourage you to use it as a platform for conversion. At a minimum, if you don't feel like delivery is for you, I'd encourage you to at least look at some hybrid options. And I'm going to give you an example of that. There is this concept of business and industry, right? B&I. At a minimum, I want to at least control my delivery on catering. I don't want to use a third party for that. When it comes to B&I, there's another piece that I'm going to talk about. Dang it, my slides are messed up here, guys. Taking it after delivery. Okay, there's a cool hack that I want to show you on delivery that has had a lot of impact. There's a company out there called SaverPack. SaverPack has some of the coolest technology I've seen. It's designed by aerospace engineers. And if you look at the picture on your right, you see a bowl on the left that has condensation. You see the bag, and then you see a bowl on the right that has this little sticker. The SaverPack adheres to the top of the lid, and it absorbs all the moisture, so it keeps your crispy and fried food crisp and fresh instead of soggy and terrible. When the guest sees that, their impression of your attention to detail and that customer journey on this outside part of engagement goes through the roof. And it's roughly 25 cents per pack. It's super, super inexpensive. Doesn't have to go into every dish, just the ones that you're trying to control that moisture and that sogginess. So super, super cool takeaway. Big fan of this product, something worth diving into. As well as talking about catering, let's also talk about that business and industry. Here's going to be one of the big changes. And the reason why we segment that personal style catering, right? Your big foil pans, family style catering, that's going to be more socially acceptable in family groups and peer groups. But when you talk about business, there's going to be a higher expectation in the short term and probably in the long term to have that stuff individually packaged, safe, sanitary, and engaging only one person per experience with the food, not a big, huge share meal. Business and industry has some really, really cool drivers out there right now. They're trying to find the gatekeeper at a business for who's controlling the ordering. That doesn't happen as much. You've got these more sophisticated operators in business and institution, business and industry, that are using these third-party platforms. So whether it's Lunch Pro, Foodsby, Relish, which is by Cater, Easy Cater, this is what the admin person is doing. They're going to that page, they're seeing restaurants that are registered with this page because they know that those restaurants know how to deliver to this style of office catering or company catering type of event. All three of these have free sign up. I would encourage anybody in this space to go sign up on every one of these sites if they're available in your market, because you just show up on the list and people are always looking for new and exciting options to try out. All right, now let's talk about increasing the check. And I'm going to give you the top 5 strategies when it comes to increasing the check. Number one, in a Cornell study, this incredible psychological study, number one way to increase the check is through recommendations. Now, recommendations need to happen at the beginning. When somebody first sits down inside the restaurant, could I give you a couple of recommendations? The psychology to this is you name 2 things. You talk about what's most popular, what we're known for, and then you talk about your favorite. That gives you 2 different places to hit them, and you can decide whether that's a profit piece, whether it's a segment of the menu you're trying to drive sales in, or whether it's just an upsell. But it works incredibly well. Next is bundling. Now, we're all familiar with bundling as a concept when we look at fast food, right? We know we're going to get drinks and a fries. That's bundling. All of us need to look across our menu and figure out ways to be creative when it comes to bundling, because there's a ton of opportunity there. Whether it's add-ons, do you like an egg or avocado on your burger? That's just bundling or adding on. It's the recommendation piece. I'm asking, do you like, not would you like to? Next, merchandising. Quick service concepts do this really well. Think of the grocery store. Think about when you go to check out at the grocery store and there's all the impulse buy, the magazines and the candy, and how often that stuff gets grabbed. QSR restaurants have figured out how to do this masterfully. In fact, I saw one that even had like a couple of cookies packaged in a bag, and it was branded as something for later. I thought that was a super smart call to action, because it told me, hey, I don't have to indulge in it right now, but I should take it later. I'm going to want a snack later. Great idea. Merchandising can happen in a bunch of different ways. Think about the old menu cart that was going through the dining room, or you walk into the host stand and there's a menu display of the desserts of the evening. That's merchandising. So we got to figure out a way to get back to that, because it's going to help us drive sales. Next, there is timing. So the time to make a recommendation is before the guest has made up their mind. If the guest says they would like a margarita, we can't upsell them to our triple Cadillac Queen Mother Mary margarita. That's a miss, and that feels silly. We want to make the recommendations in a timely spot. Finally, the sizzle. The sizzle sells the steak. You've all heard that expression. And the first place it takes me is to the fajita. The sizzling fajita that's going through the dining room. When that goes out of the kitchen for the first time, the number of orders that happen after that are incredible. So we have to look at not just that as an example, but how many ways can we do it? That's all about that eye-catching presentation, that really, really unique play on the plate. whether it's the little campfire s'mores with a small burning crockpot fire or some big, huge dessert with a sparkler in it, whatever your taste is, it's great to do it. Now, one of the psychology pieces that we would train our staff is to do it low and slow and take the long way home. So from the kitchen, you take the longest way to the table to deliver it, and you're holding it low and slow so that everybody can see it. And we can measure the impact of that and how many did we sell after the first one went out. All right, last big hack, and I alluded to this a couple of times. This is probably one of the coolest ways to get guests back in the restaurant, and it has a very, very affordable piece when it comes to a marketing strategy. So we use this $10 bounce back gift card. Average consumer in a full service restaurant visits 2.2 times per month. I want to increase that to 3 times per month. The impact that would have on my sales is huge. So we run a promotion where any guest, day part only in the evening, any guest that spends over $40, we're going to give them a $10 bounce back gift card. The only catch is it's valid for 10 days. After 10 days, it expires. Now, I'm the type of operator that I don't care when you bring it back in, I would still honor it because I wouldn't want to upset you, but I'm trying to drive you to the 10 days. So I want to talk about the math on this really quick. Let's say I had a food cost of 25%. On a $10 gift card, that cost me $2.50. The card itself costs 20 cents. I'm all into this for $2.70 for customer acquisition cost. I could spend a heck of a lot more for impressions and conversion. I want acquisition. Acquisition is critical. And here's some interesting stats. When you look at the cost of Facebook ads or Google ads, the average acquisition cost in the restaurant industry is about $4.40. I can do it for a fraction of that. And I'm appealing to an audience that already knows me. They already like me. There's a high likelihood they'll come in. I just want them to come in more frequently. That's why I set this 10-day expiration. And the beauty of this whole program, unlike traditional ads and advertising, I'm not paying for this until the guest comes in. I'm not paying $2.70 until they spend $40. That's such a huge win when it comes to the way marketing should work. We use this $10 mentality in attracting new business, handing out gift cards to first-time guests, when we're out there on the street, knocking on doors, or we meet somebody at a party, but we also use it as an internal piece. The amount of creativity applied in how you can use this and the way that you can measure it. All gift cards have a series number on the back. I'll track how many of those gift cards I gave out over this period of time, and I'll track what percentage of them returned over the 10 days. I know $10 is that barrier of entry. We've tried it at $5. It returns at a quarter of the rate, but at $10, it returns really, really high, closer to 80%. I haven't modeled that in this 10-day study yet. We're in the middle of that right now, but I fully expect we're going to get 25 to 50% return within those 10 days. So that's about it. A lot of information. I know you guys are drinking from a fire hose. We appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you so much. And don't forget, we are at your service. If any of this stuff was interesting for you, please jump into the Consultants Lounge, ask us questions, or you can schedule your own complimentary 30-minute consultation with any of our consultants for your business to dive into how to drive your sales. Thanks a ton. Enjoy the rest of the show.